I'm just here to film a video review for the game The Rise of the House of Saud. I've done about like a 40-minute introduction and a bit of a playthrough of it. I've since then played 2 more games, and I'd like to play more. I think it's a very good game, and it has a simplicity and ease of play that gives me an ease in that feeling of wanting to play more. It's easy to quickly play another game, and the games can be quite short. This third game I played only lasted into 6 game turns out of 16, and each game turn might only take 10 minutes. The system's easy to do. The decisions are not horrendously brain crunching. And the flow of the actual turn is easy and rapid. So yes, this is, in case you didn't look at the intro video, here is the map. Can we get a better view of that? Essentially, you have a game between the rival factions of the Hussein family, the Saud family in blue, and the Sauds are supported by their allies, the Ikhwan, who are slightly unpredictable. They can change sides or turn neutral, and they're prone to devastating areas, which is a loss for both sides, really, because then you can't use areas for gaining new recruits. But why do I think it's a good game? Because I think the game system itself, which apparently is modelled on the system for I've forgotten the name, the American Civil War game that's point-to-point movement, very simple, not Brothers in Arms, the House Divided. So it's based on that in the sense that units only move through leaders, and I can't remember exactly how House Divided plays, but units move through leaders, and this is area movement rather than point to point, so it's not geographic hexes. What can I say about it? Yeah, I think the game is exciting because it's a very interesting game to play because it's a challenge. It's not easy for the Saud player to win. In fact, in all 3 of my games, they have lost. I think the 2 previous games they lost on maximum army size at the end of the whole game, and in this game they lost on an automatic victory to the Hussein faction, and that is in one way surprising because they were actually doing very well. You see the Hussein families here, and they had holdings here, and these were held by them, and in fact Mecca has been devastated by the Ikhwan, which is Mecca is obviously the main, well, not obviously, but it's the main place belonging to the Hussein family. But the fact that they won, even though they allowed Mecca itself to get devastated, illustrates one of the very interesting things about this game. You have to, as the Saud player, for example, you have to balance the movement of your allies, who can potentially destroy towns. They tend to devastate and destroy them rather than just capture them. Your allies are the strongest forces. They have the most movement, the strongest units, although they only ever stack 2 high. So they're kind of like the swiftest and hardest strike force. So as the Saud family, they're your sort of your main asset, really. But they have that big drawback because they destroyed Mecca. It results in a -4 scoot down down this table towards the -9 or less column. So we were here at the beginning of this turn, and then the Husseins ended up here, and on a 5 or 6 they get an automatic victory. On the column 4, on a 6, they get an automatic victory. So the Husseinis were kind of like maybe holding out to that, and in my game the Sauds gambled because the Husseins are strong because they're kind of concentrated and they can play a holding game, whereas the Sauds from here, they have to get all the way across attack probably Husseini strongholds, or grab. Their aim in this game was to grab small independent bases here from which they can then recruit troops and head that way. But all the while that the road is not interdicted by Saud forces, then the Husseins are gaining points on here, and so if they hold out long enough they can just gain an automatic victory, chance of turn by turn. So the Saud player has a lot of problems because, for example, illustrating this game, he only got this far across the desert. That's 2 moves for each of these fellows, and a lot of the units are dissipating as they move across the desert. Only 1 unit is safe in each of these desert regions, so you're stacked 2 or 3 high. At the end of the turn, you're probably going to lose them, and you can only regain troops back at your towns and cities, villages. So the Saud player was attempting to use the Ikvan to severely hamper the recruitment ability of the Hussein family, and then would, as they were weakened in numbers, would then be able to strike them. So they gambled on that and they lost. The Husseini, I suppose, gained diplomatic support, political support outside the game system, and won the game that way. So it was a tense game, and I think it was worth the risk because it's like because the games are quite short. You can kind of take those gambles, and I think it. Sorry about the lean there. I think it. I think that might kind of accurately illustrate the kind of warfare waged at that time in this region. So I think the game is very successful in that the gameplay is easy, and also it gives the sense, whether extremely accurate or not, it still gives me the sense from what I've gathered, just by common sense, common news items, common sort of history and bits of reading to and around the subject. It gives me a sense, it gives a feeling, a sense of what the combat was like in this feudal region. So you're raising levies of troops and then they disappear. You raise some more, they disappear. You're never quite sure if your troops are going to move and do what you tell them, because they're under local commanders and so much is dependent on their decisions. So you don't have like just a centralized command control and obedient soldiery. So it's that kind of like there's an ebb and a flow. There's a kind of the side player was gradually trying to sort of like the sea, ebb a bit forward, came back, flow a bit more forward, ebbs away again, flow a bit more forward, and eventually he was hoping he would run up on his 7th wave onto the Husseini shores and make a hold. And so you're kind of like waiting for your turn, because each leader is activated on a completely random basis. Some of them have a higher probability than others of being activated, but it's completely random. You never know if you're going to get an activation this turn. So you have to kind of like bide your time and then get your forces as best in position as best you can, and then strike when the time is right. And I haven't managed it yet with the Saud forces, and I want to, because it's that compelling a game. So that's like all the positives and the excitement out of it. The negatives, I think, are the reason why it has never come up on sort of people's radar. And in fact, on the Board Game Keepers, on a couple of like, Dogs of War games lists and so forth, I think those are misguided assessments of the game. However, it is understandable because it's not fair to say people who said that are misguided, because they're probably basing it on the game they got in the magazine, because but I think they're misguided in that in this day and age you can check the internet, you can find the errata, etc. It's easy, you don't have to have a copy of another magazine. So going back to this game in this day and age, you can find not only errata, which essentially there was essential errata that was missed out on the original print of this game. Without it, the game doesn't make sense and you can't play it properly. It's all there except for the minor thing of which other it gives you the placement of the units, but it forgets to tell you the placement of their other holdings, which are essential for the recruitment capacity, and so it doesn't make sense of other figures of maximum army size that are given in the game. So This game, I think the design is sound and provides for a very good game, but I fear that the production let it down. And some people, I think, will also be put off by this very amateur map. Actually, in fact, the map was made by... Oh, I don't know who the map was made by. I was thinking it was made by Kevin Zucker for some reason. The game was designed by Robert Markham and Mark Seaman. I think they did a good job. Why did I think this was a Kevin Zucker map? I don't know. So I don't know if that is his, but anyway, I find it nice, easy, colourful, and simple map, which is really what the game I feel gives. It's nice, easy, colourful, and exciting. So I think the map complements the game well. There are some few troubles on the rest of it in that you don't get enough counters. So for example, I had to make up counters for Devastation's records of the Ikvan and also their conquering record, because you need to keep track of those. I had to use extra things to mark control for the various factions. You need something on this because each column here is two numbers, and with this you need something to indicate you're on the first number or the second number. And then this has been completely, let me show you that a bit better, it's been completely rearranged by me. Is that this was all in a mishmash, so you had blue and red and white and the green all mixed up together, so it was sort of 1-1 could have been red, then 1-2 could have been a blue, and so forth. So it's confusing to look at, and probably maybe it was design intent of the designers that it was all really confusing, so you couldn't. So everything just kind of gave that sort of chaotic thing. But when it boiled down to it, everything had an equal chance of happening. So for the sake of convenience, because you also want to record how many times people have been activated. So like this leader can be activated 4 times a turn. This one 3, 1 for each of his strips. You can see I just stuck them all together in a convenient format, renumbered them because that doesn't affect anything. And then we can see that's the Saud possibilities of activation, they're Ikvan allies, there's the Husseinis, and these are the independents. That simplified play greater, just in not really at all theoretically, but just, like the human getting your head around it and seeing a clarity in it instead of you going, wait a minute, oh yeah, wait a minute, oh yeah, it's just like bang, 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 it's all there. So, that bit of it could be done a bit better, and if this was done today, this would be a gorgeous looking game, and it would be wonderful to play. It is wonderful to play, and I want to play it again, but I've got so many other games. I'm going to let this one go, and then I can really look forward to playing it again another day. So... yeah. One last thing to say is do look at the errata. There's somebody's given like errata and clarification. Someone else has given some more extensive ones, which I don't necessarily agree with all of them. But one thing which they said is the game seems to indicate that you take it in turns with an activation roll. So say the Saud player has 7 and the Hussein player has 8 activation rolls a turn, and you roll 1 each, and then the other rolls 1, then the other rolls 1, and that was another kind of like psychology. It doesn't really make a difference because whoever's rolling, it's just random which side's going to be activated. So it does make a difference in the sense that you can decide to do all your rolls last or first, or you could well, that doesn't make a difference, but you can decide instead of your rolls to just move one guy. And if you want to do that last or first, that can have a big weight. And then also you might stop rolling at a certain point if you've rolled enough of your guys. So I think it suggested in what someone's suggestions or clarifications to do all of one side's rolls and then all of the other side's rolls, rather than alternating bits and bits. And that makes for a much better game as well, instead of this kind of like back and forth, which sort of wastes mental time rather than so much, and a little bit of kind of like game time, especially if you're 2 players and you're swapping the dice and so forth. Just do it that way. It flows much better like that. So for example, in most of my games, in fact I only did it that way in this last game, but it tends to be that the Hosseini player, he wants the Sauds to go first because he's going, right, you go, and then I'm going to respond to what you do. And often in this game, the Saud player would go, he would naturally activate some of the Hosseini people's anyway, and Hosseini guy would go, thank you very much, I'm doing that too. And then when it gets to the Hosseini guys go, and the Saud player's going, please roll for some of my activations, the Hosseini guy goes, that's it, I'm not doing any. I'm going to stay where I am because you didn't get anywhere. And that's how they hold out and tend to win, I find. So I am intrigued to get the Saud people to win a game. I think the trick is the Ikvan. And I think I tended to use the Ikvan to strike too much and on their own, because when they go on their own, they tend to devastate. If they're sort of diluted with a bit of Saud forces, they're less likely to devastate. And you don't want them to do too many devastations because that also adds like political points for the Hosseini side, leading to their potential automatic victory. But I think the Ikvan are the key for the Sauds, and I need to find out how to deploy them properly. And it might actually be kind of like semi-suicidal attacks on strong Hosseini forces, like send them in first and then come into mop up later with the proper guys. Yeah, I'm just thinking in my head there, and that sounds like a really good plan. I'll have to try that next game. Okay, so that's me for now, and that is the game of Rise of the House of Saud. Please, if you have it, pull it out, check out little bits of errata, add a few counters for yourself and play a game of it. It's going to be great fun. If you don't have it, pick it up on eBay, it's cheap. Or BoardGameGeek, or the Game Box, or any of those. Okay, bye for now.